And we are live right across the internet. You're watching Offbeat with Josh and Jamie right here on Haps TV. Now, welcome to everyone who is in the chat. Hello to Daniel Goff, who is watching from Westminster, United States. Okay, fantastic. I didn't know they had a Westminster, but they apparently do. And we have today the return of Josh Rom to Haps after his business trip. Around the world, a business trip around the world in 80 days. And here he is back with us here tonight on Haps to go through some major sort of showbiz stories. We really haven't saved any of these. These have all broken in the last few days. Some really big things to get into tonight, Josh.
Yeah, absolutely. Huge news. Let's start off, of course, talking about the future of arguably the biggest girl band in the world right now. I am, of course, talking about Little Mix following the departure of the much-loved band member Jesy Nelson. Of course, she left a big bombshell statement explaining her reasons why she departed the band, citing mental health reasons. The band themselves also released a statement on behalf of Leanne, Jade and Perry, talking about their support of Jessy's decision, but making it clear they intend to carry on as a trio.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, it was the news that we all sort of suspected that was coming. She took that extended break. She wasn't there for the VMAs, the end of their reality show, The Search. And, you know, it's been something that we are not unfamiliar with, Jessy's struggles. What was it called, The Odd One Out, that program that she did?
Well, it's the BBC, the infamous BBC Three documentary, which of course chronicled her feelings as she was suffering with mental health whilst in the band of Little Mix, and this kind of gave fans more of an insight into her struggles, and we really saw a different side to her, a side that we sort of knew was there, but was very much bubbling under the surface, and she brought it right up for the world to see and kind of showed her struggles and her journey in a very powerful and also very public way. And then, of course, over the summer, we've seen problems with Jesy and her position in the band. Of course, there was a performance where they performed for the Radio 1 Live Lounge, where she basically broke down on stage, and Perry Edwards took over some of her lyrics and some of her parts and some of their songs. And then there are also behind-the-scenes footage during those kind of not ad breaks, but during those sorts of breaks in between songs, where we saw the other band members trying to calm her down, and she was breaking down on stage. And I also, looking at other performances like the Meerkat Music performance over the summer as well, you could see she wasn't quite comfortable on stage. So this is something that we know has been going on for a while. Of course, earlier this year, she released a statement saying, or at least the band released a statement saying that she will be taking an extended break from the band, explaining her absence from, as you said, Little Mix, The Search, their BBC television show. Of course, as well, their latest album, LM6. She's been very much absent from the promotional trail. When the band made an appearance on the Jonathan Ross show, she was noticeably absent in promoting the music. In terms of social media, she hasn't been nearly as active as the other members in terms of promoting their music and promoting their work and promoting their material. So when she took the extended break, a lot of us were already speculating maybe she already departed the band, maybe she already made her departure, but maybe she wasn't.
That would make sense, wouldn't it?
I was going to say she wasn't 100% sure of her departure, so maybe the band wanted to give her the time and the space to think things over with, and obviously, ultimately, she made the decision. And instantly as well, I think speculation was rife when she made the announcement of her extended break that this was something to do with her mental health as well. So I think the main message that we get from this is that hopefully she does get the help that she needs.
Well, I mean, 9 years in the band, 9 years not under the kindest spotlight, it must take its toll. And I think the public when we saw that documentary with the BBC that she did, we really understood the toll that it did take, because, you know, she just left her teenage years pretty much when she shot to fame on X Factor. It's a similar situation, I think, that happened with another X Factor band, One Direction. I think we saw Liam Payne, talking on TikTok that it was, I think the words he said was that she'd zaned out. So I don't know what he knows about what's going on in the inside. He must probably be able to understand it a bit more than what we can probably speculate on. So maybe, you know, I mean, I'm not sure Zayn got the same online abuse that Jessie did, but fame in that sort of framing can affect people in very different ways. And some people, sadly, just aren't built to be in the limelight. Had the hashtag Be Kind sort of thing that everyone's toting been around 9 years ago when Jessie and the rest of the girls won X Factor, could we be in a different situation, do you reckon?
I don't know is the answer, because I think if the BBC Three documentary showed anything, is that from day one on the X Factor, from when the band was effectively put together on that reality show, Jessie was receiving a lot of criticism and abuse, saying that she's the, quote, fat one, the chubby one. Even when the band were established and they came back to the X Factor to perform a new song, and Jessie lost a considerable amount of weight, Katie Hopkins, for example, even went on the attack and called Jessie the chubby one. So, you know, the documentary has shown that this sort of abuse has been going on for a while. And whilst in terms of body image and imagery and in terms of the limelight, it is slightly different for boys and girls and men and women, I think what's very clear is under intense scrutiny, if somebody is a little bit different, they are going to face more heightened scrutiny. And I think Jessie, from day one, it's very clear that her position in the band, she felt more uncomfortable than the other three, and she felt out of place. What's also very noticeable and very notable is the statements coming from Little Mix's camp in the press. So The Sun released a story today, coming from a source very close to the band, which was effectively doubling down on the band's message, saying they intend to continue as a trio, and they're already working on LM7, another new album already. If I know anything about showbiz, I can only guess who the source is. I expect the source is very close to the band, maybe even dealing with them and working with them on a day-to-day basis. And I think the band at the moment as a trio with Jade, Perry and Leanne, I think they want to emphasize the message that they are going to do a One Direction, they are going to do a Spice Girls, where at least with another album, they're going to continue on as a trio despite a member departing from the band. Of course, this isn't unprecedented. We've seen One Direction continue for another album after Zayn. And of course, in terms of girl band, the Spice Girls did this after Jerry left. They released another album with two very prominent singles, Goodbye and Holla. So this isn't unprecedented. And I think the band want to double down on the message. They want to reassure their fans that they intend to keep on going, because of course there have been rumors of all four of the girls embarking on solo careers. But this
listen, after a decade in it, then of course you're gonna decide, you know, want to explore other areas. We're forgetting that they're a manufactured band, just like One Direction, just like Spice Girls. You know, if you know they haven't got here on their own creative merit. You know, they're fantastic musicians, great singers, great personalities, and I think great role models for their, you know, young, largely female fans. But I think after 10 years in the business, they probably are ready to explore their own creative paths. I know that Leanne's going to be doing some acting and that sort of stuff, but I think this is the first time. It's not unprecedented, but it is the first time that we've had such an inside look into the reasons why this is happening. If we think back to Zayn, we had suspicions, there were things in the paper, but never the real rawness and the honesty that we're seeing this time around.
Well, you said that Jerry has since been very open with her bulimia. Maybe at the time it wasn't so public. But,
exactly, but we're seeing it in real time this
time. We are seeing it in real time, and I think obviously fans have realised, or at least I think have come to terms with the fact that this has been coming for a while. But something interesting that the source did say to The Sun is that they don't expect the solo projects to start until at least 2022 at the earliest. So they're
busy girls, aren't they?
They are. There's more. I think what the source is trying to say and double down on the message is there is more in it for the band. This is not the last that we are going to see and hear of Little Mix. And the three girls, Perry, Leanne and Jade, are very, very keen on continuing as a trio.
Yeah, and I started a radio show a few months ago, and I had no idea that I actually was a fan of their music. It was just something I never considered. But of course, they're so sort of on, you know, on radios and TV and all that sort of time. I didn't realize how much of their music I actually did enjoy. I am really enjoying their latest track, Sweet Melody. But let's leave Little Mix there, move elsewhere in the showbiz world, because today a lot of people are finding it quite weird to feel on the side of one Tom Cruise today. I'm going to play this clip for everyone, and then we can have a little talk about it afterwards.
We are the gold standard. You're back there in Hollywood making movies right now because of us. Because they believe in us and what we're doing. I'm on the phone with every studio at night. Insurance companies. Producers. And they're looking at us and using us to make their movies. We are creating thousands of jobs, you I don't ever want to see it again. Ever. And if you don't do it, you're fired. And I see you do it again.
Well, there we go. I mean, that rant goes on for several more minutes, but Tom Cruise, not everyone's favorite because of his personal life. And I think that's what I'm seeing on social media a lot today, in a few articles saying, oh my God, for once, Tom Cruise is in the right, and I completely support what he's saying, because he is obviously talking about COVID restrictions not being followed on the film set of the latest Mission Impossible movie. So, I mean, you know, I hear whispers of maybe COVID secure measures aren't as good as they're supposed to be as we sort of continue into the pandemic. But
I'm going to stop you there, because I don't think it's about the measures particularly. I think it's people aren't following the measures. We actually have a few comments. Euro Maestro says, this rant is epic. And Tony also says, I never liked him, but he is right. With
there we go. That's what we're saying. But that's the thing. If people on the set aren't following the measures, and then all of a sudden the star of the show turns round, I say good on him.
I think good on him too. I think he's not pulling any punches. He knows as well that if the set gets shut down, a lot of it's going to be, he's going to be in the news a lot, and it's all going to be on him basically. I feel you can tell by the rant how passionate Tom is, that he feels a lot of weight on his shoulders, and he thinks that he is setting a precedent for the rest of the movie industry, and the fact that Mission Impossible of all movies is still going ahead, is still being shot amid this uncertainty, amid this time. He thinks that he is showing the world that yes, this can be done during a pandemic. And I think the fact that he is berating his fellow crew members for their irresponsibility, I think is good on him, because he's not pulling punches. He is, as I said, he's passionate about this, but he wants to emphasize, yes, we are creating jobs. Hollywood is making movies because of us. He realizes the impact that he personally has on the whole of Hollywood and the way the industry is working because of his practices. So I think that's why he felt so passionate about it. Maybe, as I said on Twitter earlier, maybe the rant, maybe he could have toned down the language. It was full of expletives, let's just say that. But he has a point. I think he has a very valid point, and he's clearly passionate in the way he expresses it. And I do think he's going to gain a lot of fans from this. I mean, I've actually seen plenty of social media reaction. One of my colleagues on at the radio station, which I also do entertainment news on, actually tweeted today how, or at least put on Facebook, how much can we pay Tom Cruise to stand outside Aldi to shout at all the people that might not be following COVID measures and might not be wearing masks or whatever. The Sun's reporting that this was 2 crew members standing less than 1 meter apart, looking at a screen, at a monitor. So that's what the incident is reported to be. Personally, I don't think Tom Cruise is going to come off badly from this at all.
No, absolutely not. But I mean, you saying that, so I mean, he's filming it around Europe where you know, COVID secure measures are more stringent than we'd probably see in some areas of the United States. So they are already, and I know a few people working on shoots here in literally sort of down the road from me in Southwest England, and you know, they're very, very careful. Very, very careful. Other areas of the entertainment industry, maybe I'm hearing, aren't necessarily following them as they should be, but definitely films, because I think the spotlight is on them a little bit, and you know, and I think maybe Tom Cruise is taking this, like you were saying, quite personally, because didn't he pay for some cruise ships for crew to stay on to keep them safe while they were somewhere in Northern Europe?
Yeah, he it's known that he actually contributes a lot to his films as well, and he's known to be very generous. Despite all the rumors, he's known to be quite a generous guy. For example, I remember at the Mission Impossible Fallout, he's known to at the premiere of Mission Impossible Fallout, he's known to want to greet every single fan that showed up to see him, and he wants time to speak to every single member of the press who's standing there on that red carpet to speak to him. He's very generous. He's known to be a nice guy in Hollywood in terms of giving his time to other people. And I think that, if anything, this rant shows the responsibility that he takes for these projects. And I do think that's very admirable. Film sets, I know, are very difficult because a lot of these actors and as a crew, they all have to operate in a bubble, and it can be quite scary. There's a lot that goes into logistics and forms and insurance and legalities here. So I think Tom is clearly taking this pandemic and his responsibility as not just an actor, but as a person with prominence, almost as a leader, as one of the leaders of that production. I think he's taking that responsibility so seriously.
And I think Euro Maestro here is reminding us correctly that there was an incident in Italy where a few crew members did contract coronavirus. Tony De Tiger, love that name, says we can not like him personally, but respect him regarding COVID. I mean, that's surprising. I mean, I was surprised to see as many messages with that same sentiment. I don't like him, but COVID. That shocked me a little bit when I read them. But maybe Tom is thinking about doing a little bit of personal reputation repair, because like you said, Josh, I mean, if he is such a nice guy in Hollywood, why do people have this sort of disconnect with how some people in the public think about him? So Tom Cruise,
I know the answer to that, and that's
okay.
That's a combination of obviously his well-known links to Scientology, and of course I'm not going to comment directly on Scientology because there's so much debate in the public about that, and I don't think it's my place to comment on other people's beliefs. But obviously I know his links to Scientology, and those strong links to Scientology obviously have some sort of effect on a public persona. But regardless of that as well, I think some of his media appearances haven't necessarily gone, let's just say, according to plan. When, for example, he jumped on the sofa on the Oprah Winfrey show, and all the rumors that came out of his and Katie Holmes's wedding, and other bits and pieces with Nicole Kidman, and you know, there's lots that goes on in his private life that has been speculated. So those are the reasons for his disconnect. All I will say is I have met Tom. I have interviewed him on the red carpet, and he actually seems like he is quite the gentleman when it comes to Hollywood actors. I have met some really lovely Hollywood actors, some not so graceful Hollywood actors, but Tom, it may be a facade, it may not be a facade, but he does seem like a real gent, and he wants to give his time out to people. I think there is a certain perception that has been built over the years, which is why there is this disconnect. Personally, I don't feel like I am able to comment, because what Tom believes in are Tom's beliefs. And I think when it comes to religion, who are we to judge on somebody's beliefs? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, to a point. I mean, there are wider conversations that we could have, which we aren't going to have today, I think.
The debates that go around on Scientology is another sort of, you know, we could go on and on and on about Scientology, but this isn't about Scientology here. This is about Tom and his reaction to COVID, and maybe how he is as a person as well. And personally, I think he's going to come across well. We have had another comment actually from Daniel, who says, Jamie, are you and Josh getting the vaccine?
Well, yes, as soon as it's available, absolutely, let's do it.
I couldn't agree more. Not agree more.
So I think Tim David is agreeing with us here, Josh, and more information on where the Westminster exactly is in the United States. So thank you for that, Daniel. Also, just want to say thank you to Paula, Tim, and Bob, who have all subscribed here tonight on Haps. If you would like to do so, please do follow me and Josh. You can literally click to our profiles somewhere near our faces. But I just want the one thing that, maybe this is the skeptic in me. He did do a lot of name checking in his rants, Josh. Can we read into that at all, do you reckon? You know, he called out studios. He named them. Did he know? He knew that this was going to get into the press and travel very far.
Yes, I did. But to be honest, I've been speaking with a few colleagues today, because a lot of people have been quite cynical about this. If Tom doesn't necessarily need any more press. I think he genuinely believes, and maybe his entourage around him believes, that he is possibly one of the biggest stars in the world, and I think he is certainly up there. He can talk, he can say the word wow, and it will land on the front pages of the New York Times. Do you know what I mean? Like, that is how newsworthy Tom Cruise is. So when I think about this rant, I don't think this was for personal gain here. I think if this was a planned message, maybe, because that's what some cynics and some critics have been saying today. I think and it is a big if the rant was planned or orchestrated in some way, I actually believe it wasn't for any sort of personal gain. I genuinely think he wanted to spread a message out there. And I think this was all about him setting an example, and also almost taking ownership of the role that he feels he is setting an example for the rest of the movie industry. Maybe.
Well, we've got a lovely comment from Daniel here. He says, thank you, guys. You are well loved, and I look forward to your broadcast. Well, thank you, Daniel, for your continued support. Sticking with films now, and a very exciting biopic on the horizon from an actress that I knew very little about. Just looking into her sort of credits, one of the biggest things that she's been in, aside of a Star Wars film, is a Channel 4 series called End of the Effing World, which I absolutely hated. So maybe that's why I know nothing about her. So maybe, Josh, you can give us a little insight on Naomi Ackie.
Yeah, well, as you said, she was in Star Wars Rise of the Skywalker. She was in The End of the Effing World. She won a BAFTA for that. She's also appeared in the likes of Yardi, of course, directed by Idris Elba, which was Idris Elba's directorial debut. She was also, she made an appearance as well in Doctor Who. So she's been on the scene for a while. I think this film, if done right, will be the making of her. And this film, it is called I Want to Dance with Somebody. Whitney Houston is known to have a very colourful life, and she is known to have battled a lot of demons. I will say that this does have the same screenwriter as Bohemian Rhapsody. Of course, Rami Malek won an Oscar for his portrayal as Freddie Mercury in the biopic about Freddie Mercury and Queen. This also follows in the footsteps of Rocket Man, of course, about Sir Elton John. We're about to see an Aretha Franklin biopic with Jennifer Hudson. That's going to be good. Jennifer Hudson is an incredibly talented actress, and if Dreamgirls is anything to go by, I'm sure this performance is going to be absolutely stunning. What I think is the most important point here is, this could be the full making of Naomi Aki's career, but we're seeing a lot. We're seeing the rise of the music biopics. That's what I think is important to notice here. You know, Rocket Man, but it started really properly. Well, I mean, biopics have been going for years. Biopics are always strong contenders.
This latest resurgence,
and it's a resurgence, isn't it?
Yeah.
Renaissance,
that's the word that I was looking for. And you had a much more flowery description for it.
I think Renaissance is a good word, but a full-on resurgence, because we're seeing a highly anticipated musical biopic, one after the other. And I think there is an element of musicians having their own demons and having colourful lives that we want to see reflected on the screen. And I think as well, if we're looking into the whole culture of this, we're seeing a lot of musical documentaries. Gaga, 5'2", Taylor Swift, Miss Americana. Shawn Mendes has a Netflix project. Billie Eilish has one coming up on Apple TV+. You know, there is such intrigue. One Direction, of course, had their film, didn't they? So there is such an interest and an intrigue when it comes to the lives and the behind-the-scenes action of huge musical icons. And I think
it doesn't interest me, but
if it's done well on screen, I think it can be really brilliant to watch.
That's really doesn't interest me, but if we're going to get an insight into the world that we never saw but speculated about with some of the biggest stars in the music industry. I mean, maybe their careers, their music, their legacies are just ripening around now. If we sort of look at the people that have been covered, you know, obviously Bohemian Rhapsody, it was all about Freddie, essentially. It was Elton John. Maybe we're just getting to a point where these stars are just so far enough in the past, there's enough space between them that a little bit of creative license can be applied to the I'm sure well-researched reality, and we get some really good films. And I think it's the quality. I mean, how many documentaries have you sat through where it's like the dark truth of Michael Jackson or Whitney Houston's sad last days? How many of those? And they're just talking head. What we're getting is really beautifully produced, well written, cinematically intriguing films, plus you're getting an insight into the lives of some of the biggest musicians, and then it just leads me to think, who are the music stars that are on the stages now that we are going to be getting in, you know, maybe 25, 30 years time.
Yeah, and what I think is important to mention that Brian May and it wasn't Deacon, but I think it was Taylor. They were both consultants on Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah, right.
John as well was a consultant on Rocket Man. So we have had creative input from people who were there in those moments, who were effectively were living those lives, and who was present for all the events depicted. So yes, there can be creative license taken, and that is obviously fact, as producers of The Crown, or at least the royal family, would like to continuously emphasize in terms of The Crown. They like to emphasize the fact of creative license, but I think it's fair to say. But I think, as you said, there is a real art form to this. I think Aretha Franklin obviously is very different when it comes to that. And obviously, in terms of Whitney Houston, she's not there. Neither is, unfortunately, her daughter is not alive to also tell her story as well. So I think with the Whitney Houston biopic is going to be a very interesting watch. She, of course, lived a very colourful life as well, battled a lot of demons. But however, what these biopics need to be very careful of is, and this is why Bohemian Rhapsody, I think, was so divisive as a film. Critics were so totally split for it, was they need to be careful as to not verge on parody and impression. Because you want to feel as though these actors, you want to see transformative performances as if they're becoming the character, and that's what I think we need to keep an eye on. But this is going to be a very interesting watch with Naomi Ackie as Whitney Houston for sure.
Absolutely, and maybe it'll be the first time I'm seeing her work, and I'm sure I'll love it. Hello to Tina, who's just subscribed. Thank you very much for following along, Tina. Now, Josh mentioned the Royals, and just before, you reminded me something. Before we hop on to this next story, I saw a GQ interview with Josh O'Connor talking about how he became Prince Charles, and of course that voice, the voice that he puts on for Prince Charles, his Prince Charles character voice, it's laboured, it feels intensive, and he literally, and after almost as a clause to every answer he gave, but of course he's a character, this isn't real. So the pressure is on, I think, not only with the producers but the actors too. It seems with the Crown performance.
Well, all I'll say to that is, oh gosh, oh gosh,
oh how awful!
Right,
how awful!
I say that the Diana character.
But I mean, it's good though. It's good. It is
brilliant. She was utterly brilliant.
It is. It's good.
It's so good, and Josh O'Connor getting the yes sort of voice is. I think they do have it on point. They do.
So there's an accent coach. I forget her name.
Divisive is because it's just so convincing.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. Even with the looks, the physicality of playing the characters. So in Josh's interview, he did say that there was an accent coach that worked with sort of everyone, pretty much, in The Crown to get the accents just right. And I think more in the latter series, because these people are actual people that we have a lot of good audio recordings of, so we can really imitate their accents really, really well. And he said that they, and you just said it, the way that they said yes, they don't say yes like we would say yes, they say ears. Ears. So you start ears.
And it's so funny because
obviously can't do it. I'm obviously not a Prince Charles impressionist.
And after watching the show, I just kept saying to my mother, Mummy, I said, oh, jolly good. Like, jolly good, yes. Like, even they've spoken a lot in interviews how the royal family speak in a very distinctive way, almost kind of throwback to that kind of 1940s style clipped speech almost. Like, yeah, jolly good, yes.
Well, from the royals staying firmly within convention to those who are doing everything to break convention, from the Waleses to the Sussexes.
Smashing convention to pieces. Do they care? No.
But probably, maybe, like it or not, Josh, we know how you feel. They're going to break records potentially with what they're going to be doing. We've already seen an astronomical Netflix deal with the Sussexes, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, Harry and Meghan, and now a Spotify deal for a podcast from a prince. Josh, tell us more.
Well, they've signed a deal with Spotify. They actually have been very sort of vague on what the podcast is going to be on.
Let's face it, there probably isn't content yet.
Yeah, they basically just
there probably is not content yet.
No, they're basically said we've signed a deal with Spotify in a partnership with our production company Archewell Audio, and we're going to be hearing voices that we've never heard before, blah 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 blah, the typical Meghan claptrap. This is just another way of them to capitalize, to make as much money commercially as possible, making it very, very clear that they are fully not that. Like, for example, after the Sandringham summit, the Queen and Prince Charles very much left the door open and said, you are welcome back whenever you wanted it. And there was obviously going to be a review a year, 2 years down the line of whether they wanted to effectively step back into their roles. Now, their titles, I should say, they haven't been stripped of their titles. Their titles are simply inactive. They're not using them, but they haven't been fully stripped of them. So we can still refer to them as the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. And even though they're stepping back, they're still very much still within the royal family. But what's very clear is in the statement that they said when they wanted to effectively have their cake and eat it, they said they wanted to be a progressive force within the institution, effectively taking almost what could be interpreted as a political line. And they're signing all of these deals with streaming giants and huge networks like Netflix and Spotify to really capitalize on this, to make as much money as possible, peddling their claptrap messaging. Effectively,
claptrap.
Well, some people think it is. Listen, I got to tell you right. I read Finding Freedom on holiday, and it gave me a lot of insight into them. And I read books in the following order. I started off. I treated it almost as if it was a trial of my own beliefs. The prosecution was Finding Freedom. And it was basically like, oh my God, have I been too harsh on them? And then I read Wake Up by Piers Morgan, which made me realize, actually, no, I've been very fair on them, if not too fair on them. And actually, what I believe is actually right. What I actually came away from Finding Freedom, I came away thinking that Prince Charles is actually a very kind and fair man. I came away thinking that Prince Harry has a lot of deep resentment towards Prince William. And I also came away feeling incredibly sorry, actually, for Thomas Markle.
Well, I mean... I just think
you don't know what to say, really, do you?
It's a messy business, isn't it? When I think that I don't necessarily have a problem with Meghan. I probably disfavor the institution and the firm. I'm ready for a progressive royal. Absolutely, I'm ready for a royal that doesn't show political. Okay, so Meghan did step out of line when she
completely. She made her
out of line. That was too far.
She made her political
yes, too far.
Yeah, but she made her political opinions very clear for the world to see.
And if you don't change with the times, the public are the most important thing for the royal family and their continuation. They need to change with the public. The Queen isn't ready for that. Philip doesn't want that to happen. I really thought that Harry and Meghan could have been a catalyst in the right direction. And it seems, for all intents and purposes, that has failed. So maybe what we are seeing now as a result is just because of that. They didn't want to change. So now they are all power forward in the direction that they always wanted to go in.
Listen, the monarchy, I am a royalist here through and through. I believe in the monarchy. I believe in its future, and I believe in its benefits towards our country. I think the Queen is an amazing lady. The Crown has actually not really altered my opinion on Prince Charles. I think apart from a lot of what he says about climate change, obviously that's a whole nother debate. And arguably that could potentially be a political issue as well to some people. I think Prince Charles is coming across like a fair man, and who doesn't love Prince William? Who doesn't love Prince William? What I will say is I think Harry and Meghan throughout the pandemic have just appeared so out of touch, and they felt like what they have to say is just so important. And I feel let down from them. I really do, because I almost feel as though they've abandoned us by swanning over to California and living their celebrity lifestyle, paddling out their claptrap messaging, yet still asking for privacy. There is just so much about it which doesn't ring true. And can I just say, right, I originally loved Meghan. When she came into the royal family, I said, yes, this is amazing. This is a new generation, a royal for a new generation. And that's the thing. I think you can still have a royal, a younger generation of a royal, but it's the political messaging and the hypocrisy of their actions. That is what I cannot stand. And also as well, I think as well, I know there's been a lot of debate about the kind of treatment of her in the press, and there are accusations from some of their camp, or at least some of Meghan's supporters, that the press has been racist in terms of their approach. I actually don't believe they've been racist. I believe, and reading Finding Freedom as well, I think they've drawn to the wrong conclusions. I think certain members of the press were critical of her, and overly critical of her, not because she of her race, but because she's an American actress. That is what I think. I think some of the press just didn't think she was that suitable. And I think obviously the fact is an American divorcee, obviously there are going to be parallels with Wallis Simpson. There were always going to be parallels taken.
I know, but how long ago was that? Come on, it's not
but the fact that
the suitability of someone's partner.
Yeah, but listen, can I just say the fact the Queen allowed the marriage to go ahead, despite that fact, says a lot, and how much the monarchy has changed. But what I think is a fact. Yes, that's a long time ago, but that doesn't necessarily equate to racism.
Well, yeah, okay. Maybe not if you boil it down to that, but I'm sure there was racially motivated. You can't rule it out. You absolutely cannot rule it out.
Well, I believe, reading the book and seeing the accusations from their point of view, or at least from their camp's point of view, I still think it was motivated because she was an American divorcee actress. That is what I think the issues were. And obviously, we as a country at that time felt very protective over the prince, especially some of the press felt very overprotective of the prince as well. So I think that's why. And even William's own approach, which is arguably the start of the feud, the cause and the catalyst for the prince's feud, even that was, he was saying, "Are you sure about this girl?" I don't think it was necessarily racist. I think it was just from a protectionist sort of stance, and people who hold the institution dear to their hearts. That's what.
There we go. Of course, and that is what we're constantly realizing as we watch more of The Crown. For someone who really hasn't paid much attention to the royals for most of my time here on this earth, that they are just as much public property as they would like to be private people. But at the end of the day, this Netflix series and this Spotify podcast, I just am not interested in it.
Well, I feel we were discussing before we went on air tonight about kind of what sort of a program this will be, and I think it will be so, like you said to me earlier, I completely agree. I think it's going to be so totally manufactured in every single detail, and I think there are going to be so many cooks in this podcast kitchen that it might not actually be worth listening to, because will it sound genuine? Will it sound spontaneous? That's what I think why people like Joe Rogan successfully cultivate. And My Dad Wrote a Porno is because you never know fully what's coming up next. And I fear that maybe this is just, will this just be another platform for them to shout their messaging and put it out there into the world, and for them to simply earn money for that? That is what I think. It's basically, are they being paid to just scream their message that is of a detriment to the monarchy as an institution? Have you even heard? Apparently, it's been reported that they want to start their own honours system, their own awards, to award causes that they feel deserve it, that causes that they feel deserve recognition, almost rivaling the Queen's honours list. It's scandalous.
Well, yeah, I mean,
coming
that does absolutely seem like a bit of a missile to the bows. But I mean, there we go. That is obviously more to come where that's concerned. But at the end of the day, like I said, I don't know. I just don't think it's going to be very good. Like, I just can't see it being any decent content. Of course, people are going to lap it up, though. Of course they are, because I mean, and I think that's probably what they're going to try and do next. If they can't keep their titles, and if the door is well and truly closed at Buckingham Palace, then they have to go stateside. And I don't know, big monarchs there.
They're the ones who are slamming it shut. The Queen is keeping it open to them, but they're the ones.
That honour system sounds like a bad move.
It's totally a bad move. The thing is, it's their actions are the ones that are making their return harder and harder and harder to imagine and to almost bear, because they're the ones that are that are causing this reputation. They're the ones that are bringing this all on themselves. They're the ones who are making the steps, who are making the actions, who are defying convention. This is their doing ultimately. And also, I feel so sorry for Thomas Markle. I feel so sorry for Thomas Markle, because the impression that I got of him in the book is he's a very private man.
Everybody used him.
Yeah, everybody used him from all sorts of angles, and I think he was listening to the wrong person in his other daughter, Samantha Markle, and arguably, did Meghan do enough to reach out to him? Should she have actually have just flown over? If she can fly over there for a baby shower, could she have flown over to Los Angeles to actually go visit her dad and try and talk things through? You know, this is the thing. She says she was sending texts and she was sending cards, and he had direct lines to the palace and to officials. The thing is, right, from reading the book, he unfortunately made some very naive actions, and he felt embarrassed. And as a private man, he then became even more of a recluse. And he, I think, felt that he was doing not just his daughter, but the royal family a favor by staying out of the limelight and getting better with his heart operations and not commenting. And then by then the relationship was so soured due to the way everything was being twisted from Meghan's camp, that the only way that he could actually communicate with her was through the press by that point, or through Doria Ragland, Meghan's mother. So I just felt so sorry for him, because I see him as a man who, through no fault of his own, has been very, very hurt, and because of circumstances which have been just totally out of his control.
I mean, so I don't want to go on and on and on about this, but I mean, so I think the initial reason for the breakdown is, okay, Thomas Markle was naively drawn into doing things which he shouldn't have done. That embarrassed Meghan in front of the Queen, which obviously, I mean, that's it. I mean, this is the most important thing in her life. This is the biggest job interview that she will ever have. Let's face it. If the Queen has to agree to the match, if the Queen has to support the decision for the marriage, she needs to get this right. And her family.
And the wedding was going ahead. The wedding was booked. Everything was sorted.
But still, like the future relationship with the firm was destroyed because of all the messiness that happened.
Yeah, but
I think the press have got a massive part to play.
The thing is, I think he genuinely felt the stories surrounding him. He was genuinely embarrassing the royal family and embarrassing Meghan, and it was outside of his control. And I think he tried to take control of that by collaborating with the paparazzi, and unfortunately it was a very naive sort of action that backfired massively. But I genuinely think his heart was in the right place in doing that. And
Oh,
That's,
yeah,
like,
absolutely.
That's what I feel, and I think everything that's happened subsequently, I just felt has just been so sad. And that's after reading Meghan Markle and Prince Harry's side of the argument as well, and seeing their side of things, and the letters and the accusations and the back and forths. You know, this is how I came away feeling. Even also before reading Piers Morgan's Wake Up book as well, I as soon as I stopped reading Finding Freedom, I thought, mate, have I been too harsh on Harry and Meghan? But I just felt a sense of pity and sadness for Thomas Markle. I really did.
There you go. A rare bit of compassion from Judge Josh there as he bashes down his gavel.
Rare? Sorry, no. I said earlier, I hope Jessie gets the help she needs. I feel sorry for Thomas Markle. No, I am a very compassionate journalist. I am a very compassionate person who holds a lot of feelings who takes feelings into account. No, I do not accept that assumption. Absolutely not.
Well, the jury's out, and there we go. Another Offbeat with Josh and Jamie. Thanks to everyone that's watching, everyone that's subscribed and interacting in the comments section. You're all amazing, and we hope to see you